Hey there everyone and welcome to another Tower Heroes level guides. In this video we're going to go through the experience dungeons levels 3 to 6. That's all that's in the game right now, so that's what I'm covering. Level 3 is kind of the first point where you can still use low level heroes, but then it maybe takes a little bit of technique to finish it. From 4 and beyond I'm going to be using the higher level heroes. It may be possible to do with low level heroes, but basically, it starts getting tougher at that point. So I'm going to talk more about the general technique of it and just be showing you my high level heroes doing it. So the interesting thing about the experience dungeons is that they have explosive enemies, at least in this point. So the explosive enemies are the normal foot soldiers. The big enemies also explode. The big guys, if you look here on the left hand side, there's one of them now. Level 3 doesn't have it, but levels 4 to 6, the big guys explode as well. And the explosion, the way it works is it's on the square which they're on, and then also both the sides and up down as well. It doesn't really go diagonally. So your setup has to take that into account, but what it recommends is like space out your heroes so they don't get hit by the explosions. What I would say is actually it's good to have them grouped together where then the healers can heal them up. But then just position slightly so you take advantage of those diagonals or like the longer range of heroes, that kind of stuff, so they don't all get caught up in the same explosions. You just have them, spaced so they don't all get hit by them, but then all getting healed up by the healers. So the first level here, you can see the enemies are going to go through that path, they're going to channel through this one bit. They enter from 2 access points on the left and from the top, but they all get channeled through this one little bit in the middle. So what you can do is put Felwyn there, who's a defender. They're going to be fairly large groups of enemies, and Felwyn is going to block them all very well. She has good damage as well, and then I've got Victoria behind for damage dealing, and I haven't got anything else horizontal or vertical from that. Umara is off at a diagonal, Sagus is at a diagonal, Syrian is placed so he can heal everything there other than Umara, and then I've got Azria as well, who can attack from range and stay out of harm's way. So that's the setup that I'm going to be using for this. Let's go and look at the actual clip being used. So these are the low level heroes. As you can see, everything is Evo 1 or max level in that, but it's very cheap to get to that point. This should be very doable for people. I think everyone gets Felwyn, so Felwyn is kind of the key hero for doing this. She's just very good at blocking lots of enemies and dealing a lot of damage output while she does that. So get the damage dealers down first of all. You don't need the healers right away. This first clip, and I think the next clip as well, you can't see the explosions. Unfortunately, it's just, things are kind of buggy in this early version of Tower Heroes, and at this particular point, the explosions weren't showing properly in auto battle. But those enemies were exploding, and that's why the health was going down on my heroes. So you need a healer set up, because, there's more exploding enemies coming in now. I put Azria down next because I didn't quite need the second healer yet. But basically from this point it's just going a little bit overkill almost, putting down some extra heroes. So like I said before, quite a few enemies come at once, which is why a defender is very good, and you kind of want a defender anyway because the damage done by the explosions is quite a lot. Another thing I didn't say about the explosions earlier on is the damage it deals is based on the enemy's sort of power stat. So the big guys who explode later on, they do a lot more damage with their explosions. They can actually like one-shot the squishier range heroes that you have. So in this battle it's not so important, but in the later ones it's key that they don't get caught up, your heroes don't get caught up in those explosions, or you are ready for the heals. The foot soldiers do less damage with their explosions. So at the end, quite a lot of enemies come at once, but we've set up at this point, it should be easy enough to get through those with the heroes you got. My heroes didn't really get close to dying at all in that battle. So next we have level 4, and like I said, this is where the big guys start exploding. There are a couple of them that are very challenging that come later on. There's also one wave where there's loads of foot soldiers that explode. So those are the two kind of problematic points. Otherwise, this is another case of the map channels all the enemies through one specific column. So what you want to do is basically build up around that with a defender at the front, and then everyone else slightly out of sync so they don't get caught up in the explosions. So the only one which you'll see getting caught up in them is Sagus, who will actually die. I think I he died and I replaced him. I can't remember exactly. I didn't do a perfect technique for this battle, I'll tell you now, but I can tell you about what you should be doing. So I've got a defender there. You could use Velka or Hail, basically any kind of nature or water defender. You don't want to use fire on this map because there are water enemies. And then behind that, Karl is best. If you have a nature damage dealer, because he will get hit by some of the explosions, well, all of them really. So you want to ideally have someone who can actually tank them a bit there, and Karl will do that while being a good damage output. So Silver I've got in the bottom left, she's out of range of the explosions, well back there. Also I've got Umara positioned where she's going to heal basically the whole group while being out of the way. Azri is out the way, Syrian is basically out the way. Syrian I faced left, I should have really faced upwards. That was just, not perfect technique. I think this was actually like my first run where I succeeded, and then I just kept the auto battle. Tig was just a good damage dealer up there, who I put in, and that's actually quite a good position being out of the way. He will get hit by some of the explosions, which is why Syrian would have been best placed facing upwards. But yeah, let's move into the battle so you can see what's going on with it. So if you didn't spot there, Karl is Evo 2. I think, what's his name? Brunor is Evo 2 as well, just if you want to know how strong the defender is. Basically, Brunor tanks everything. So we start by putting down Remus. He's going to clear out these enemies that aren't exploding. They're just weak little hounds, and he's going to give it a bit of extra CP for the beginning. You saw he wasn't in my final setup. Sagus, similar kind of job. He's going to soften up these enemies for Remus to kill, which will get a lot of CP right at the beginning, and Sagus is going to be a reasonable damage dealer later on. Now Syrian I should have faced upwards, but this is to kind of help out. I see now why I placed him there. It was to help Remus, but actually at this point it would have been good to be healing Tig, because some explosive guys come in, and in fact we can build to having a defender down there. So that's what I really wanted, is a defender down. This is the big wave where there's lots of explosive enemies. What you definitely want to do is not what I did, where I let my heroes die off. What you want to do is time a heal with the healer that you've got. So I've got Syrian here, but using that skill to heal everyone up in the middle of that explosive stuff. So like the first few explode, your heroes get hurt, and then you use the heal skill to heal them back up, so they then tank the rest of them as well. That's what you ideally want to do. I didn't do it, but that's what you should do. So now we've got some more enemies, nothing too dangerous until this final wave where we've got the big guys coming through. These are going to do a lot of damage when they explode. So again, you can try using the heal skill after the first one explodes to then tank the second one as well. I managed to do just about okay through it because I was all set up and my heroes are strong enough. But yeah, that's this level. Hope that gives you a good idea of how to complete it. For level 5, this one is a little bit more complicated. I actually decided to split my heroes into 2 groups and use healers in a kind of good positioning to be able to heal multiple of them. So I went a little bit closer to what the game recommends of like splitting your heroes out. This particular screenshot, it's a bit of an action shot of Karl that you can see attacking there. What I wanted to capture was later in the level, you can see on the left hand side there are bombers which come. So these bombers are important to take out. They're only later in the level though. So Sagus in his position, which he's in right now, is quite good. And then I put Silver later on in the level. They are both out of line of the bombers. The bombers only go on that line of going across, which would be hitting my melee heroes. But with Sagus and Silver there, they managed to take them down in time. So you've got the bombers to worry about later on. Otherwise, the enemies channel through 2 columns now in the middle, rather than just 1. You could try and tank it all up in the final column where I've got Remus there. That's a possibility. I didn't really consider that properly. Perhaps it would be easier to do that, but also spacing out your heroes works out quite nicely. I think this technique that I use for this map is a little closer to what they're kind of expecting you to use. So what I've got in terms of healers is the most important thing. I've got Umara on the very far right, and what she's going to be healing is Remus there, but also Syrian and Karl. So she's going to be supporting that middle section as well as Remus, and then Syrian is obviously healing that middle section, and then I've got 2 range attackers who are out of the way. So Sagus is actually facing right. He's not facing down as he looks like he is right now. But those guys, Silver and Sagus, they're going to be attacking the enemies a bit along the way, but not going to be hit by any explosions, because the explosions are happening next to Roland and Carl, with, what's her name, Azria, getting caught up in it a bit. I can't really say much more without us seeing the battle itself, so let's move into the battle, and then you'll be able to see what goes on with this. So if it wasn't obvious, I'm using the slightly higher level heroes, however things are not super high level. But yeah, anyway, so we start off with Sagus, and I think I'm also going to put down Remus. So this is a similar idea of, you know, trying to get the CP generation at the beginning. They're nature damage dealers, and this is water enemies, so they are actually going to be, you know, good for the map as well as building up a bit of CP at the beginning. So I went to put down Carl. I've put him facing left, so he's going to cover both of those columns very nicely, and he's going to clear out most of these enemies along with Sagus. I don't think anything gets past until a little bit later and goes to Remus. So now I can put down a healer and keep Carl alive. Carl is going to take down most of these enemies. Actually, all of them. Okay, he's doing all of them, but if he's not quite strong enough to take down all of them, or, you know, whatever hero you're using there in place of Carl, then Remus is good backup. Like, you know, between the two of them, they can do a good job. So now I can build up to play Roland. If you don't know from my other videos, Roland is kind of my 5-star that carries me. He's so strong, and so he's going to cover both the rows as well. So both Carl and Roland are going to be doing a good job there. Now this is most of the way through the map, and this is where the bombers come. So it was about 28-30 enemies left. That's when the bombers come, so you need to have silver at that point to take them down, and then they can protect the melee heroes. Got a little bit lag, a little bit of lag there when the skill use got used. But yeah, Roland and Carl do a brilliant job taking down these enemies, I found, and having Remus as backup was good too. So yeah, that was this level. Not too much in the way of explosive enemies, I don't think. There were some, but it was less of a big deal as the last level, where like they really came in a massive wave of explosive enemies. Now we've got level 6. This one is a little closer to level 4 in terms of there are a couple of points in this battle where there's like a lot of explosive enemies that come through. So those are the difficult points. Also, I know some people had particular difficulty at the beginning of this level because it's quite hard to get the heroes down to stop those early enemies. So I'll obviously be able to talk about that when we're looking at the battle itself. But the general idea that I have here is I am tanking up in one spot on the left-hand side, which I'm doing by having 2 5-star heroes at the front. 5-star heroes basically just tank a lot better than the lower level heroes. If you try to use the lower level heroes, they'll kind of die off to the explosions too easily. So having the 5-stars at the front, I found just they tank really well. And then I've got Remus and Sagus. Sagus in there for damage. Remus is actually, because he's placed right at the beginning, is less necessary later on. But Syrian is slightly off at an angle. Like I said before, you don't want him in the position Sagus is in because he's going to get hit by explosions. But where he is right now, he's not going to get hit by explosions. So Syrian is there to keep Carl and Roland alive far more than anything else. I didn't use a defender in this battle, just because Carl and Roland do a good enough job with their damage that they can take the enemies out pretty quickly, especially when supported by a couple of heroes behind. And the range heroes on the the right-hand side, they're there because you can see at the top there's a couple of bombers that come. So the bombers come on the path just above those range attackers and just below them. So you don't want to place anything on those two paths. I think it's a lot easier in this battle to tank up on the left-hand side where you can see I am tanking up. And then it means you've got this space as well on the right-hand side where you can put a couple of range attackers. They're both facing left, so they're going to attack all the enemies that get channeled in, all the melee ones, as well as the bombers that will go past them and not actually go in line with them, so they can deal with the bombers perfectly fine. They stay out the way of explosions until right at the end, which I'll get to when I'm showing the clip. So let's move on to the clip itself. Yeah, the enemies here are a fair bit tougher than the last two battles, which is why I'm using the 5-star heroes and everything. Like, without those, I think this is probably the point you can't really do this with low-level heroes, unless you like get them to max level or something like that. So we start off with Remus. Like I said, it's a little tricky at the beginning here. Remus does a good job taking down these enemies. I've got him with equipment on, so he can just about take out those hounds with 2 hits, and I put Sagas down pretty quickly as well. So together they can take down that top row, and I just get enough CP to place Carl. That's how I did this beginning bit, and I would probably recommend something similar. Remus and Sagas doing the job there, and then if you can't quite afford Carl, then have a different hero to place down. But ideally you want to get Carl down, and then you need a healer. This is when we start getting some explosive enemies. So at the point where Remus is about to get taken over by too many enemies, that's when I have enough CP for Roland. So then Roland goes down there, and now I need to heal this up. This is the wave. We've got loads of enemies coming in, and that's what I talked about on the 4th level, is you should time the healing skill for right in the middle of them, so you just about keep your heroes alive. So now I've got the 2 range attackers on the right hand side for the bombers, which you can see are coming through now. We've got various just little enemies coming through, which my heroes will take down, but you can see the big ones are coming now. These are the problematic ones, and what I'd recommend is what I actually just happened to do by chance the first time I did this, which was place a defender down in front of Carl. So one explosion goes off, Remus died there, but the second one, if you can have a defender in the way, the explosion won't hit your Sagas or otherwise the Roland position monster, Roland position hero. It will mean that you'll survive better, so that then you can deal with the small enemies that come afterwards. That defender will just tank up the explosion, hopefully. And it doesn't matter that your range attacker dies on the right hand side like my Tig did, because the bombers have already passed at that point. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you in the videos soon.